Hi, my name is JC, and my hair, it's flat and dead. So today, we're gonna change that. So the goal is kind of a long shag type of vibe. I went for some longish straight across bangs and then just sort of let them grow into curtain bangs, so it'd be a little bit less maintenance for me. But the goal here is lots of layers and some straight across bangs. I was stupid and I didn't record the first little chunk of this, but basically what I did to begin is I cut off probably 3 inches, just a blunt cut around the whole thing, got my dead ends out of there, and then I sectioned the side bits apart from the back bits. If that makes sense, you can kind of see it here. I have some bobby pins holding the side bits in place. This is actually a method that I saw on YouTube. It was done by, I'll have to check the creator name, so we'll insert that here. But it was this hairstylist, and basically she was cutting a long shag, and her method was to start from the crown area and then cut off a couple inches, however short you want your top layers to be. So before I started filming, I had already cut off probably 2 or 3 extra inches from this top section that I'm working on now. You'll see when I pull over the second section how much longer it actually was before I made that initial cut. So you take that top crown section from the back and go ahead and chop off like 2 or 3 inches. That's your shortest layer. You want it to be pretty short. And then basically what she does from there is make horizontal sections, like I said, starting from the crown and then going towards the back of the head. So on screen right now, I am pulling over the second section from the back, pulling it forward to rest right on top of that first cut I just made. And you basically just use that first cut as your guide. So every section that you bring over top, you want to just cut to the same length, roughly, as that first cut that you made. So naturally, as you move towards the back of the head, that means these pieces will be slightly longer than the layer before, so it creates a really nice, tapered layer. So now you can see what I was talking about earlier, that difference in length between the second section that I'm pulling over and the first section that we cut, and that is the length that we're trying to match. Another thing to remember, especially when doing layers like this, is just point cutting. That's the best way to prevent just general choppiness. Just point cut a lot. So what I'm doing now is basically brushing the 2 layers together to kind of double check myself and just make sure that everything is relatively even. And I definitely recommend doing this after each layer just to make sure that there is a level of consistency going on. So we're gonna speed this up a little bit so you can just get the general idea of this process. And y'all, this method works. I've gotten so many compliments on the layering in my hair, and people have asked me where I got it done. I was always so scared of doing layers in my own hair. I've been cutting my own hair pretty much since I was old enough to do it. So I have done layers using other methods before, but this one was by far the easiest, and it had the best results. There's no chunks missing where you didn't blend the layers very well. This method blends the layers on its own. 10 out of 10, recommend this method for sure. I will link the original creator's video that showed me how to do this in the description, and I've basically just adapted her method into a way that you can do it on yourself. Quick little progress update. And then I decided to go back in just because I needed a little bit more blend between the layers and the bottom of my hair, if that makes sense. So I basically just keep working my way down the back of my head. And this is where it starts to get a little bit difficult because it's really hard to keep these layers from the very back from kind of splaying out all over your head. It's hard to keep them just going straight forward. If you are also trying to do this, I recommend just taking your time. And also at this point, I started to cut a little bit below that guideline because, like I said, now I'm trying to really blend it towards the bottom. As you can see here, splitting this huge chunk of hair into two halves kind of helped me. And I also knew that I wanted the layers to be shortest in the back of my head and then kind of swoop down just a little bit longer towards the front. So that's why I'm kind of making this arch shape that you'll see. Okay, so now we're moving on to the sides. I just pulled all of those back sections that I just did into a little ponytail to keep them out of the way, and then I let down the front sections. So for these side bits, I'm really just kind of freehanding this before we move on to the bangs. So I start by just cutting the dead ends off, just getting a nice clean line, and then I just move in layers upwards to the top of my head and cut off about an inch more each time. Probably not a whole inch. Basically what I'm saying is just cut off a little bit more the further up the head you go. Okay, so from there I'm blending together these kind of half-assed layers with my shears. I cannot remember for the life of me what this is called. I think slide cutting. I could totally be wrong. I think it's called slide cutting though, and basically you just kind of leave your shears half open. They have to be really sharp, but half open, and just literally slide it down the piece of hair and kind of, you know, apply a little bit more pressure the further down you go. And this just kind of tapers and feathers the cuts that you've made. It sounds a little bit intimidating, but it's really not that hard. If I can do it, you probably can too. Now just repeating the same process on the other side. Moving on to the bangs. If you've ever watched a how to cut your own bangs tutorial, they almost always say to make like a triangular part. So to do that, I am keeping the same sections that I had before, but now we're just going to brush it forward, and then I'm going to carefully create a middle part out of that so you know where to put the top point of your triangle part. And then we just start creating that triangle part, just dragging the comb diagonally down to the edges of my forehead. Then just take whatever's left over, pin it out of your way, and then you should have something that looks sort of like this. Throwing in some examples because I got a really shit angle of this, I had to focus, okay? Real quick, excuse the drastic change in quality. My phone died and then I switched to my camera, which I probably should have been using all along. You know, you live and you learn. So then taking that bang section, I'm just starting super small, taking off some bulk length. And at least with the look I was going for, I didn't want them to all be one length. I'm kind of going for this feathered look. So I'm taking into consideration that I do want some of this section to be a bit longer, so we're starting very small. So this here is another method that I saw floating around on YouTube, and you basically want to middle part that bang section again, and then you take each side and pull it across your forehead. So if you're working with the left side, you want to pull it to the right. If you're working with the right side, you want to pull it to the left. And basically this just makes it a little bit easier to get an even cut and an even taper from shorter in the middle to longer on the sides. So doing this kind of enables you to just make a straight cut, but then whenever you pull it back to its correct side, it's gonna have a little bit of an angle to it, so you'll see what I'm saying. I of course did this completely out of frame, but what I'm doing here is basically just making a smaller triangle section out of what I just cut, and then I'm going to repeat the same process, just a little bit shorter and a little bit more drastic to get the middle short. So again, blunt cut until I get it probably about an inch or so longer than where I actually want the shortest pieces to hit. Then I'm just going to pull those longer side sections of bangs out and use the slide cut method to blend the two lengths together. Then I just kind of go back and forth adjusting until I'm happy with the length of everything and just the overall featheriness. This little curtain bang situation we had going on. Part of me kind of wishes that I would have just left it this length, but it's okay, because like I said, I did kind of want to do the straight across bang thing for a little bit. I then performed a whole lot more unorganized cutting and aggressive point cutting, questionably chaotic slide cutting. You get the point. Until I got something that kind of resembled bangs. I had to cut the cameras for most of it because I really had to focus and I really didn't want to mess them up, but this is pretty much how they turned out. I got you through some of the basics of a curtain bang and kind of how to blend into the bang, but as y'all saw by that little montage, my actual bang process was a mess. So if you were wanting to do what I did and go all the way to the straight across bangs, you can totally find better tutorials for that part. So here are the before and afters. And seriously, the difference in the amount of volume is crazy. It's so much healthier. I'm honestly in love with this hairstyle, so if you've been thinking about it, do it. And if this was helpful at all, leave a like or a comment or a subscribe or all the YouTube stuff that you want to do. That's all for now, folks. Bye-bye.